Hi guys, my name is Lela Sophia. I am an artist and fine jewelry designer. If you like contemporary fine jewelry, if you like luxury handbags, all things interiors, then I have some fun videos for you. Today, I have a really cool video. We're going a little bit off the beaten path. We're gonna talk about interiors. If you guys have not already seen, for my first YouTube video, released an apartment tour. I have been in my home for almost 20 years. I grew up coming here, and then for the last 10 years, I've been here as an adult by myself, and I am going to share a couple tips and tricks of how I redid my home, how I've kind of honed in my style, and now that I am so happy with it, what the tricks that I think I did made the biggest difference. Before we get into the topic of today, if you guys are new here, thank you so much for joining. Make sure that you subscribe because we have some amazing videos coming up soon. I am so excited to talk to you guys and can't wait to get into this topic. So as we know, as we kind of see behind me, I have a very specific style. My biggest influence, I would say, is probably AXEL VERVOORDT. I love his work as well as his son, Boris VERVOORDT's. I will link my two favorite videos of both of theirs below. They just have this like incredible kind of heritage, almost ancient looking, beautiful style. There's a lot of different references that they pull. AXEL VERVOORDT has a lot of European references, but also kind of dives into Japanese style. Boris VERVOORDT does a very similar thing. And I think that there are a couple tips from the two of them that I've learned that I then applied to my own home that made a huge difference. Now, again, we are talking about small spaces. They have huge, massive spaces. Boris VERVOORDT has a little bit more of a kind of understandable, relatable apartment, even though it is still massive and really beautiful. AXEL VERVOORDT has literally an entire castle as well as a whole other kind of community of apartments and a museum. So it was really kind of fun. I challenged myself over the last couple years to weed through what the both of them really loved and what they brought to the table, and I think I've come to a really cool place. One of my favorite creators, I've talked about him before, is Arvin Alano. Arvin was one of those creators that I kind of just like attached myself to really quickly when I was redoing my home in the last year or two. His work is so beautiful, but there's also something really relatable about it. It's kind of that like I turned, nothing into something. And especially as he's grown, his new home is just like, oh my goodness, to die for. Another creator who I know so many of you are going to know is Athena Calderon of I Swoon. No words, she's one of those that like you really don't have to explain why you love her style so much, but yet I could explain it so much. She is brilliant. She has a beautiful townhome and also a home, I believe, in the Hamptons. Another creator who I follow is Colin King, as again, so many of you guys probably do. Colin is an interior stylist, so it's actually a really beautiful approach. His spaces are very curated. There's just like this beautiful kind of simplicity to it. And even in the while that I've been following him, I've kind of seen these really beautiful differentiations between each project. I love that in interior designers and stylists, seeing the little variations and kind of learning from that. So in my own home, these are 10 tricks that I learned that as soon as I did them made a massive difference. Again, we're talking about apartments. And so this is kind of very specific to a small space, but I also really think that this could apply to larger spaces or homes. Even if you're looking to just redo one room, these tips and tricks worked wonders for me. So the first tip, I had a huge transformation by taking away my rug. I had a very large rug in my living room. I had a previous one. I've been through a couple rugs, as a lot of us have. I had a really cool, like, kind of shaggy rug with a Berber pattern on it, which of course I'm Moroccan, and so it was meaningful. It was culturally appropriate, but it was contrasting to my floor color, and for some reason it just took up so much space and bulk. For a while I was confused as to what to do. I, of course, like, have this dream of what I would want really large, beautiful floorboards to be. I love those, like, kind of rustic, beautiful, very, very wide, almost unfinished floorboards. But, you know, that's not an option where I am right now. And I wasn't the biggest fan of my floors, especially kind of in relation to my wall color at the time. We're going to get into that next. But the first step for me was teetering with the idea of taking away the rug. As soon as I did that, I was like, yes, this is it. It is so much more organized. It feels actually homier. I don't really know how exactly to describe it because I'm sure a lot of people are going to think that it perhaps looks cold or uninviting. But for me, it actually did the opposite. It kind of like cocooned in my space. And I realized that a lot of the inspiration images or videos that I have seen actually don't have rugs. And so I applied that to myself and it worked wonders for me. The second tip is to add accent chairs. I think that everybody is kind of going to have their own style, their own taste, of course. But for me, accent chairs are really what has brought my space together, what has made my space feel like home. There are so many varieties, and honestly, it just makes a huge difference. This is something that in my mother's homes, in my grandparents' homes, my aunt's homes, over the many, many years that they've kind of moved and had different places of residencies, I realized that they had it right all along. They each have had their own completely unique style and taste, and the accent chairs that each one respectively had were so beautiful and really made a massive difference. Sticking with that theme, I love the idea of not having a couch and doing a day bed instead. I have not done this yet, but I am saving and looking to eventually flip-flop and have either a day bed or a chaise lounge instead of a couch. I think that it actually makes the space look cleaner, it makes it look a little bit more fresh, and it makes it look a little bit more individualistic to your style. Two people who have done this extremely well, as I mentioned in my intro, Colin King, of course, has a larger space, so, you know, there is room to play, but I love the day bed that he used as kind of the focal point or access from one point of view. Another couple who I think is so iconic in the industry are Jeremiah Brent and Nate Berkus. They have had several homes and several home tours. I'm like drooling every time I get to see one of their new videos or one of their new images from a home. They have in many different ways kind of played with, are we using a couch? Are we doing a day bed? Are we doing a chaise? What are we doing to kind of add difference, to differentiate between rooms? I love this idea. I think that especially in smaller spaces, couches can be a little bit overdone. Couches can be kind of mundane. And so switch it up. Moving on to the bedroom. My tips and tricks for a bedroom come from me having to only utilize my bedroom for everything when I have had roommates in the past, as most people living in cities can relate to, and honestly anywhere in the world. My bedroom was really it. I had to have a desk. I literally made a full recording studio in my bedroom at one time. I had a piano. I taught voice lessons from there. I did my homework. I did everything. Literally, my bedroom was my life. My room still kind of, I was attaching myself to that like utilitarian, I need to have everything in my room for a long time. As soon as the pandemic happened, I kind of like detached myself from that thought, from that notion of like, you got to stuff everything in your room and make it work. I spread out a little bit. I kind of let myself like go. I spread my wings. And the one thing that I thought was the biggest game changer for me was taking literally everything out of my bedroom except for my bed. Having just a bed or one other piece of furniture, which I personally have my dresser. That is such a game changer for your state of mind, for your mental health. Kind of having my bedroom be like the place that I only go when I'm sleeping, when I'm resting, was a huge, huge improvement in my own home and my style. A fun tip that I have is to go asymmetric. Going asymmetric will really, really help your eye and help your company's eye play around with what shapes you have created. It helps challenge you to kind of go away from the norm. I remember when I was shopping at one point years ago for kind of to, grown up my apartment. It was, okay, you need 2 of this, you need 2 lamps, you need whatever. I've stepped away from that a lot. If I could totally redo everything and have an unlimited budget, I would do things differently. And I want to tell you guys that so that you can kind of break the rules a little bit. Going asymmetric, whether it be having only 1 lamp, whether it be having only 1 side table, I love, especially when we're talking about adding accent chairs, maybe it's a light fixture. Having just 1 or having a mismatch set is such a cool way to really add your own style. A very useful tip, which again, I don't even need to tell any New Yorker this or any big city liver this, but get items that are multi-use. My kind of hero item that I have a desk from Ethan Allen that was labeled as a desk that I originally wanted as just an entryway table. I then started working solely from home, and so I kind of use it as both. I have just very minimal decoration on it, and so when it's time for me to work, to do my jewelry carving, I literally just clean it all off. I get all of my supplies and whatnot, and I work from there, and then it's easily transitional back. Finding coffee tables, armoires that will have multiple uses for your storage. My coffee table is hollow. I literally have all of my things that I don't need everybody to see stuffed in there. Multi-use items will save your life. This piece is more kind of specific to me, and so if this is not your taste, I totally understand. But one thing that I have found that was a game changer, honestly, years ago, about probably 8 years ago, I started only purchasing abstract art. Abstract art for me is so much more calming. It's also so much more universal. The pieces that I have invested in, I know forever will be in my home. They're kind of the element of my apartment that I never, ever have thought twice on. These pieces are so beautiful. They're meaningful because they mean different things to different people. They evoke emotions. Abstract art is a way of kind of like calming down your space. I am an artist myself. The piece behind me was done by me. And so yes, I'm totally biased on this topic, but I don't know. There's so many kinds of art that I walk into people's homes and I'm like, oh my God, seriously, especially people with like very expensive homes who I know have spent a lot of money on art. There are just so many better ways to go. My favorite artist personally is Kazuo Shiraga, who was a Japanese artist. His work is the pinnacle to me of just incredible, beautiful art. Adding in pieces, not necessarily like that, but pieces to your own taste that don't necessarily have huge images plastered all over, that will kind of be trendy. I think that having abstract art is just timeless and will work with any style that you kind of adapt to in the future. Very much so. In that same vein, we're just going to lean into my weird art self for a second. My family is going to be offended by this, and I'm sorry in advance. This is just totally my own personal taste, but I'm not a fan of having like an influx of family photos everywhere. I am somebody who is very sentimental, but having family photos can kind of either like clutter your space or date your space. I think that there are, of course, ways to do this beautifully. If there's a photo that is so incredibly meaningful to you, add it. But for me, what I've found that I love doing is instead of photos, I will display objects or pieces of art, even if it's a piece of jewelry that ties to a loved one who is incredibly meaningful to me. I have done this in many ways, whether it be a vase that my brother gifted to me, the piece of art that I had done by stealing roses with a lily and a rose, which represents my aunt and my relationship. There are so many ways that you can kind of display a beautiful piece of art. Even a coffee table book that somebody gave you or that you have in common with somebody that you love. That is a way of kind of like taking the clutter out, using a beautiful object as something that maybe only you know and love, and that's really special. Another tip that is, I would say maybe more obvious, is to go monochromatic. Now, this does not mean have every single thing be one shade, but having your base items be somewhat of a similar hue or tone, it doesn't necessarily have to be the same color, at least put them in the same color family, whether it be warm or cool toned pieces. Having accent colors and everything else primarily be of the same vibe, that makes your space so timeless, so beautiful. I know a lot of people are very minimal or not. If you're watching this video, I would assume that you're more so minimal and kind of my same school, but it just makes a huge, major difference. This is the last category, and then I have a little bonus for you guys. But the last category I think is pretty obvious, especially with all of the creators that I've mentioned. Instead of using kind of traditional flower arrangements, I think that can date your space a little bit. We love the kind of wabi-sabi organic use of vessels that will be multi-use, either as just displays, as a piece of art, or to put branches or your own kind of unique, very interesting floral arrangements in. This immediately elevates your space. Floral arrangements are beautiful, and so there's nothing wrong with that. I have little moments of dried flowers everywhere, but I found that actually taking those away and adding branches or more kind of weird, unique, if you live in the woods, go foraging. If you live in a city, find your flower district. And they are so plentiful with a knowledge, of course, but also options. There are some really, really interesting plants or succulents that will work a little bit better. I am obviously not a fan of plants inside the home. I have a very unconventional and unloved viewpoint of that. I actually don't think that plants should be inside small spaces, especially where they don't have that much light. People complain about killing their plants so much because their plants should be outside. I know that that's an unpopular opinion, and so don't come for me too hard, but having your plants in a flourishing, beautiful environment, leave them there. Inside, you can put plants that are either actually deemed as low light or no light appropriate, or use dried plants or branches. For my bonus tip, I'll make this one quick. Take away your TV. Like, honestly, take away your TV. I know that you watch most of your shows on streaming services anyways. Apple TV, Roku, those are great. Take your TV away. The frame TVs, we're over them. Get a projector. That is a game changer. If you invest in a projector that you can either leave up, there are little mini ones, it makes a huge difference. Having a huge TV like I did for literally 15, 17 years was an eyesore. I loved it. I was kind of dependent on it. And as soon as I took away, I felt free. I get so much more work done. And then when it's time to watch a movie, it's a whole kind of experience. Take your TV away. And on that note, this has been 10 of my totally personal opinion tips on how to make your home more chic, luxurious, and minimal. These tips I have totally all done myself, and so they're just my own opinion. If you have anything opposite to what I'm saying, that's amazing. People do things so beautifully in their own ways. These are just what really, really worked for me and kind of changed the game of my home. I am so grateful to you guys as always. If you have not already subscribed to my channel, I have some amazing videos coming up soon. Like this video and make sure that you comment. I want to hear what tip is your favorite, what tip didn't you think of, and what tip are you absolutely not a fan of. I love talking to you guys, and I can't wait to see you in the next video. Thank you guys as always. Bye guys.